The grand facade of the old Meridian Theater loomed over the street, its once vibrant exterior now dulled by decades of neglect. Ivy climbed its brick walls, and shattered windows gave the building a forlorn expression. It was a relic of a bygone era, a ghost of the past that still held a flicker of its former glory. Rebecca stood in front of the theater, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She'd always dreamed of revitalizing an old theater, and when she stumbled upon the Meridian during one of her routine drives through the countryside, she knew she had found her project. With a deep breath, she pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the dusty lobby. The air inside was heavy with the scent of mold and decay. Sunlight filtered through broken windows, casting eerie shadows on the floor. Rebecca ran her fingers over the faded velvet of the seats, envisioning them filled with eager audiences once more. She had gathered a troupe of passionate actors, all as eager as she was to breathe life back into the theater. Her partner Daniel, a seasoned director with a keen eye for detail, joined her in the lobby. "It's perfect," he said, his voice echoing in the empty space. "This place has so much character. The audience will love it." Rebecca smiled, her enthusiasm contagious. "Let's get to work. We have a lot to do before opening night." The troupe arrived over the next few days, their excitement palpable despite the theater's eerie atmosphere. There was Emma, the lead actress with a voice that could melt hearts. Mark, the comedic relief with a knack for physical comedy. Sarah, the talented but shy set designer. And Tom, the stage manager who could handle any crisis with calm efficiency. As they began cleaning and restoring the theater, strange occurrences started to unfold. At first, it was little things. Props inexplicably moved, lights flickering without cause, and a chill in the air that couldn't be explained by the drafty building alone. The troupe laughed it off, attributing it to the quirks of an old theater. One evening, while rehearsing a particularly intense scene, Emma felt a cold breath on her neck. She turned, expecting to see one of her fellow actors playing a prank, but found no one there. She shivered and brushed it off, focusing on her lines, but the occurrences became harder to ignore. One night, as Rebecca worked late in her office, she heard the distinct sound of a piano playing. The melody was haunting, filled with sorrow and longing. She followed the music to the stage, where the grand piano sat untouched, its keys moving as if played by invisible hands. Rebecca's heart raced as the music ceased abruptly, leaving an unsettling silence. She glanced around the empty theater, the shadows seeming to move on their own. Swallowing her fear, she returned to her office, determined not to let her imagination get the best of her. The troupe's first full rehearsal was scheduled for the following night. Rebecca and Daniel gathered everyone on stage, the air buzzing with anticipation. As they ran through the scenes, the strange occurrences intensified. The lights flickered more violently, and the whispers grew louder as if the theater itself was trying to communicate. During a particularly dramatic scene, Mark stumbled, falling to the floor with a cry of pain. "Something tripped me," he said, wincing as he clutched his ankle. The troupe gathered around him, their faces pale with worry. "Are you all right?" Emma asked, helping him to his feet. Mark nodded, though his eyes were wide with fear. "I swear, it felt like someone grabbed my leg." Rebecca exchanged a worried glance with Daniel. "Let's call it a night. We'll pick up tomorrow." As the troupe dispersed, Emma lingered on the stage, her eyes scanning the dark corners of the theater. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone, that unseen eyes were watching their every move. As she turned to leave, she caught a glimpse of a figure in the balcony, a shadowy silhouette that vanished as quickly as it appeared. Emma's heart pounded as she hurried to catch up with the others. The theater was alive, but not in the way they had hoped. Something ancient and malevolent lurked within its walls, and it had awoken with their arrival. The night air was thick with tension as Emma made her way home. The shadowy figure in the balcony haunted her thoughts, and the strange occurrences at the theater were becoming impossible to ignore. She tossed and turned in bed, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. Finally, exhaustion overtook her, and she drifted into a restless sleep. The next day, the troupe returned to the theater, determined to push through their fears and continue with rehearsals. Rebecca and Daniel held a quick meeting, addressing the strange incidents and reassuring everyone that it was simply the quirks of an old building. "We're dealing with an old theater," Rebecca said, her voice calm but firm. "It's bound to have some oddities. Let's focus on our performance and not let our imaginations get the better of us." The troupe nodded, though unease lingered in the air. They took their places on stage, diving into their roles with renewed determination. The eerie atmosphere seemed to seep into their performances, adding an unintentional layer of intensity to the play. As the rehearsal progressed, Emma found it increasingly difficult to concentrate. The whispers had returned, soft and indistinct at first, but growing louder with each passing minute. She glanced around, searching for the source of the sound, but saw only her fellow actors, equally focused on their lines. "Do you hear that?" she whispered to Mark, who was standing beside her, waiting for his cue. "Hear what?" he asked, looking puzzled. "The whispers," she replied, her voice trembling. "It's like someone's trying to talk to us." Mark shook his head. "I don't hear anything. Are you sure you're not just imagining it?" Emma frowned, her eyes scanning the dark corners of the theater. She was certain the whispers were real, but it seemed she was the only one who could hear them. Determined to push through, she forced herself to focus on the rehearsal. As the day wore on, the strange occurrences continued. Props moved on their own, lights flickered erratically, and an icy chill permeated the air. The troupe's initial excitement was gradually replaced by a growing sense of dread. During a break, Emma confided in Rebecca. "There's something wrong with this place," she said, her voice low. "I keep hearing whispers, and I saw a figure in the balcony last night." Rebecca's brow furrowed. "A figure? Are you sure?" Emma nodded. "It was just a shadow, but it felt real. And the whispers, they're getting louder." Rebecca sighed, her resolve wavering. "I don't know what's happening, but we can't let it derail us. We need to stay focused and support each other. We'll get through this." Emma wanted to believe her, but the unease gnawing at her gut was hard to ignore. As they resumed rehearsals, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that unseen eyes were tracking their every move. That evening, as the troupe gathered their belongings and prepared to leave, Emma lingered behind, determined to find answers. She wandered through the dimly lit theater, her footsteps echoing in the vast emptiness. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a chilling breeze. "Who are you?" she called out, her voice trembling. "What do you want?" For a moment, there was only silence. Then a soft, mournful voice replied, "Help us." Emma's heart raced as she spun around, searching for the source of the voice. She saw nothing but shadows. "How can I help you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Free us," the voice pleaded, the sound fading into the darkness. Before Emma could respond, a hand clamped down on her shoulder. She gasped and turned to see Mark, his expression a mix of concern and confusion. "Are you okay?" he asked. "You were talking to yourself." Emma shook her head, trying to steady her racing heart. "I heard a voice. It was asking for help." Mark frowned. Emma, you're scaring me. Maybe you should take a break. This place is getting to all of us. Emma nodded, though she knew what she had heard. As they left the theater, she couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was lurking in the shadows, something that wouldn't rest until its presence was acknowledged. The next day, the troupe returned, their resolve weakened but not broken. Emma couldn't forget the voice she had heard, nor the figure in the balcony. The theater was alive with secrets, and she was determined to uncover them, no matter the cost. The tension within the theater was palpable the next morning. Despite Rebecca's reassurances, the atmosphere was thick with fear and uncertainty. Emma's account of the voice and the figure had spread through the troupe, adding a layer of anxiety to their rehearsals. Determined to find answers, Rebecca decided it was time to delve into the theater's history. After rehearsal, she gathered the troupe in the lobby. "I think it's time we learn more about this place," she announced. "Maybe understanding its past will help us deal with whatever is happening now." Together, they ventured into the theater's dusty, cluttered attic. Boxes of old costumes, props, and forgotten memorabilia filled the space, their contents untouched for decades. Rebecca and Daniel began sorting through the boxes, while Emma and Mark searched for any documents or records that might shed light on the theater's past. Emma unearthed a box of old photographs, the sepia-toned images capturing moments of past performances and the smiling faces of the original troupe. One photograph in particular caught her eye, a group portrait of the actors, standing proudly in front of the theater. She recognized the balcony from her earlier vision, and a chill ran down her spine. "Look at this," Emma said, showing the photograph to Rebecca. "These must be the original members." Rebecca examined the photo closely. "They look so happy," she said, her voice tinged with sadness. "It's hard to believe something terrible happened here." As they continued to sift through the attic's contents, Daniel discovered a stack of old newspapers. The yellowed pages were brittle with age, but the headlines were still legible. "Theater fire claims lives," read one. "Mystery surrounds tragic deaths of troupe members," said another. "Here's something," Daniel said, gathering the newspapers and laying them out for everyone to see. "These articles detail the fire that destroyed the theater and the mysterious deaths of the original troupe." The troupe gathered around, reading the articles with a mix of fascination and horror. The stories told of a series of strange accidents and unexplained deaths that plagued the original troupe in the weeks leading up to the fire. Some actors had fallen ill, while others had suffered fatal accidents on and off stage. The fire, which had started during a performance, had claimed the lives of those who remained. "This is horrifying," Mark said, shaking his head. "It's like the theater is cursed." Emma's eyes were drawn to a smaller article, almost hidden among the more sensational headlines. It was a brief mention of a local legend, suggesting that the theater was built on the site of an old burial ground. "The spirits of the restless dead," the article speculated, "may be seeking vengeance on those who disturbed their eternal slumber." "I think we're dealing with more than just a haunted theater," Emma said, her voice trembling. "This place is cursed, and the spirits of the original troupe are trapped here, reliving their tragic end." Rebecca nodded, her face pale. "If that's true, we need to find a way to help them. Maybe if we can break the curse, we can put their spirits to rest and make the theater safe again." The troupe agreed, their fear now mingled with a sense of purpose. They spent the next few days researching the theater's history, seeking any clues that might help them understand the curse and how to break it. As they delved deeper, the strange occurrences continued, the spirits growing more restless with each passing day. One evening, as Emma was studying an old playbill from the theater's opening night, she noticed something unusual. The play listed on the bill was The Final Bow, a tragedy written by the theater's original playwright, Henry Blackwood. The same name was scrawled on the margins of the cursed script she had found in the attic. "I think I found something," Emma said, gathering the troupe. "The original play, The Final Bow, was written by Henry Blackwood, the same person who wrote the cursed script we found. I think this play holds the key to understanding the curse." Rebecca's eyes widened. "If we can decipher the play, maybe we can find a way to break the curse and free the spirits." With renewed determination, the troupe turned their attention to the cursed script, studying its every line and stage direction. As they rehearsed the play, they began to notice strange parallels between the script and their own lives, as if the boundaries between past and present were blurring. Emma took the lead, her resolve unshakable. She could feel the spirits watching, their whispers growing louder and more urgent. They were close to the truth, and she was determined to see it through to the end, no matter the cost. The theater's dark history was unraveling before them, and the final act was about to begin. As the days passed, the rehearsals for The Final Bow grew more intense. The parallels between the tragic script and their own experiences became undeniable, almost as if the play was a mirror reflecting their deepest fears back at them. The eerie atmosphere of the theater seemed to feed into their performances, lending a haunting authenticity to each scene. During one particularly intense rehearsal, Sarah, the set designer, was adjusting the lighting when she heard sobbing coming from the wings. The sound was so heart-wrenching that she immediately dropped her tools and rushed to investigate. But when she reached the spot, there was no one there. As she stood in the dim light, the crying ceased, replaced by a cold silence that made her shiver. Later that evening, as the troupe gathered on stage to run through the second act, the air suddenly grew cold, and a dense fog seemed to roll in from nowhere. The visibility on stage dropped, and the actors found themselves isolated in pockets of mist, barely able to see each other. "What's going on?" Mark called out, his voice trembling. "This isn't part of the play, is it?" Rebecca shook her head, her face pale. "Stay calm, everyone. It's just another trick of this place." But the fog brought with it more than just a chill. As Emma stepped forward, she felt an icy hand brush against her arm. She gasped and spun around, but saw only shadows. The whispers grew louder, echoing through the theater with increasing intensity. "Help us!" the voices pleaded, mingling with cries of despair and sorrow. The sounds overlapped, creating a cacophony that made it impossible to concentrate. Emma's heart pounded as she strained to hear the voices. "Who are you? What do you want from us? Free us!" They wailed, their tone both desperate and demanding. Suddenly, the fog lifted as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the troupe standing in a state of shock. The theater seemed to hold its breath, the silence more oppressive than the noise had been. "We can't keep going like this, Tom," the stage manager said, his voice shaking. "This place is driving us mad." Rebecca stepped forward, her expression resolute. "We need to finish this play. It's the only way to understand what happened and how to break the curse. We have to push through." The troupe nodded reluctantly, their fear tempered by determination. They resumed rehearsals, but the spirits grew bolder, their manifestations more aggressive. Props flew across the stage, unseen hands tugged at costumes, and chilling apparitions appeared in the shadows. One night, as Emma rehearsed a particularly emotional scene, she felt a sudden sharp pain in her chest. She stumbled, gasping for breath, and fell to her knees. The pain was overwhelming, like icy claws digging into her heart. "Emma!" Mark cried, rushing to her side. "Are you okay?" Emma struggled to speak, her vision blurring. I felt something. It was like someone or something was trying to take over. Rebecca helped Emma to her feet, her face etched with worry. We need to find a way to protect ourselves. These spirits are growing stronger, and they're clearly not happy with our presence. Desperate for answers, the troupe delved deeper into the cursed script, hoping to uncover the key to breaking the curse. Emma spent long nights studying the play, searching for hidden messages or clues. The more she read, the more she felt a connection to the original troupe, their pain and despair seeping into her soul. One evening, while poring over the script in the dim light of her dressing room, Emma noticed a series of strange markings in the margins. They looked like ancient runes, their meanings obscure. Intrigued, she copied them down and showed them to Rebecca and Daniel. "I think these symbols are important," Emma said. "They might be a part of the curse or the key to breaking it." Rebecca frowned, studying the runes. "I've seen something like this before. There was a book in the attic about old rituals and curses. Maybe it can help us decipher these symbols." They retrieved the dusty old book from the attic and began to cross-reference the runes with the information inside. Slowly, a picture began to form. The runes were part of an ancient ritual meant to bind spirits to a location, trapping them in a cycle of torment. "We need to reverse the ritual," Daniel said, his voice filled with determination. "If we can undo what was done, we might be able to free the spirits and break the curse." With this new understanding, the troupe prepared for the final performance of The Final Bow. They knew it would be their most challenging performance yet, not just acting out a play, but performing a ritual to break a curse that had haunted the theater for decades. As the final rehearsal drew to a close, the spirits' presence grew almost unbearable. Emma could feel their desperation, their need to be freed from their eternal suffering. She steeled herself for the final performance, knowing that everything depended on their success. The night of the performance, the theater was packed. The townspeople, drawn by the allure of the theater's dark history, filled the seats, unaware of the true nature of the show they were about to witness. The stage was set, the lights dimmed, and the troupe took their places, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them. Emma stood center stage, her heart pounding. The whispers surrounded her, louder than ever. "Free us," they chanted, their voices echoing in her mind. "We will," Emma whispered back, her resolve firm. "We will." The night of the performance arrived with an air of heavy anticipation. The theater was packed, the audience buzzing with excitement and curiosity. Rumors of the theater's haunting had spread through the town, drawing people eager to experience the eerie atmosphere firsthand. Backstage, the troupe prepared in tense silence. Each member was acutely aware of the stakes. This was not just a performance. It was a final stand against the malevolent forces that had haunted the theater for decades. Emma stood in front of the mirror in her dressing room, carefully applying her makeup. The whispers had been incessant all day, a constant murmur at the edge of her consciousness. She glanced at the copy of the cursed script lying on the table beside her. The strange runes they had deciphered seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy, as if alive. Rebecca entered, her face pale but determined. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Emma nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be. We have to do this, Rebecca. We have to end this tonight." Rebecca squeezed her shoulder. "We will. Remember, we're all in this together." The final act of The Final Bow was about to begin. The troupe took their places on stage, their faces masks of calm determination despite the fear gnawing at their hearts. As the curtain rose, the audience fell silent, their eyes fixed on the performers. The play unfolded with a haunting beauty, the actors' movements fluid and precise. The atmosphere in the theater grew tense, the air thick with an almost palpable sense of foreboding. Emma felt the spirits pressing closer, their presence a cold weight on her shoulders. As they reached the climax of the play, the moment they had been dreading arrived. The cursed script's final scene was a dramatic confrontation between the leading characters, mirroring the tragic end of the original troupe. Emma, in her role as the tragic heroine, stepped forward, her heart pounding. She began to speak the lines, the ancient runes resonating in her mind. The words felt heavy on her tongue, filled with a power that was both terrifying and exhilarating. As she spoke, the temperature in the theater plummeted, and the lights flickered ominously. The audience watched in rapt silence, unaware of the supernatural forces at play. To them, it was a masterful performance, filled with raw emotion and intensity. But to the troupe, it was a battle against the malevolent spirits that had plagued the theater for so long. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind swept through the theater, extinguishing the candles and plunging the room into darkness. The whispers grew louder, a chorus of voices filled with despair and anger. "Free us!" the spirits cried, their voices echoing through the darkness. Emma continued to speak the lines, her voice unwavering. The runes glowed with an ethereal light, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The audience gasped, their faces lit by the strange, ghostly illumination. As the final words of the script left her lips, the ground beneath the stage trembled. A spectral figure appeared, hovering in the air above them. It was Annabelle, the leading actress of the original troupe, her face a mask of sorrow and pain. "Annabelle," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We're here to help you. We're here to free you." Annabelle's eyes met Emma's, and for a moment, the theater was filled with a profound silence. Then, with a heart-wrenching scream, Annabelle reached out, her ghostly hand touching Emma's. A blinding light filled the theater, and the spirits wailed in agony. The runes on the script flared brightly before dissolving into ash. The temperature in the room slowly returned to normal, and the oppressive presence lifted. The audience, unaware of the true nature of the performance, erupted into applause. They believed they had witnessed a brilliantly staged supernatural effect. The troupe, however, stood in stunned silence, their hearts heavy with the weight of what they had just experienced. As the curtain fell, Emma collapsed to her knees, exhaustion and relief washing over her. Rebecca and Daniel rushed to her side, their faces pale but hopeful. "Did we do it?" Mark asked, his voice trembling. "Is it over?" Emma nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "I think so. I think we finally set them free." In the aftermath, the theater felt different, lighter. The oppressive atmosphere that had haunted them for so long was gone. The spirits had found peace, and the curse had been broken. The troupe gathered in the lobby, their faces a mix of relief and exhaustion. They had faced their fears and triumphed, not just as performers, but as a family. The Meridian Theater had been given a new lease on life, free from the shadows of its tragic past. But as they left the theater that night, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was still watching. The echoes of despair had been silenced, but the memory of that final performance would linger, a reminder of the darkness they had faced and the light they had brought into the shadows. Despite the victory, a sense of unease lingered in the days following the final performance. The troupe continued to rehearse and prepare for their upcoming shows, but the haunting memories of their supernatural battle were hard to shake. Emma, in particular, felt a lingering presence, as if a shadow still clung to her. It started with small things. Emma would misplace items only to find them later in places she hadn't been, She heard her name whispered when she was alone, and sometimes she felt a cold hand on her shoulder or a chill down her spine. She told herself it was just her imagination, the after effects of a traumatic experience. But one night, as Emma rehearsed alone on stage, the presence grew stronger. She was running through her lines when she felt an overwhelming sense of being watched. She turned, expecting to see one of her fellow actors, but the theater was empty. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice echoing in the silence. There was no response, but the temperature dropped suddenly, and the shadows seemed to deepen. Emma took a step back, her heart pounding. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent. "You didn't free us. You didn't save us." She stumbled, clutching her head as a sharp pain shot through her mind. Images flashed before her eyes, faces twisted in agony, flames consuming the theater, and the spectral figure of Annabelle reaching out to her. "No!" Emma screamed, falling to her knees. "We did everything we could! We tried to help you!" The whispers intensified, and Emma felt a cold, suffocating presence envelop her. Her vision blurred, and she struggled to breathe. She could feel something, or someone trying to take control. "Emma!" A voice called out, piercing through the haze. It was Rebecca, rushing toward her with a look of horror on her face. Rebecca grabbed Emma's shoulders, shaking her gently. "Emma! Snap out of it! What's happening?" Emma's eyes rolled back, and she let out a guttural scream. For a moment, it felt as if she was slipping away, her consciousness fading. But then, with a tremendous effort, she fought back against the invading presence. The shadows receded, and the whispers faded into silence. Gasping for breath, Emma collapsed into Rebecca's arms, trembling uncontrollably. "It's not over," she whispered. "They're still here. They're still trapped." Rebecca held her close, her face pale with fear. "We need to figure out what went wrong. We need to find a way to truly set them free." The next day, the troupe gathered once more in the theater, their resolve renewed by Emma's terrifying experience. They pored over the cursed script and the ancient book of rituals, searching for any clues they might have missed. Daniel discovered a passage in the book that they had overlooked. It says here that reversing the ritual requires more than just speaking the words. The spirits must be willing to let go of their pain and accept the release. "How do we make them do that?" Mark asked, frustration clear in his voice. "They're clearly still angry and in pain." Emma thought of Annabelle's face, the sorrow and anger etched into her ghostly features. "We need to help them come to terms with what happened. They need closure, not just release." With this new understanding, the troupe decided to hold another seance, this time focusing on communicating with the spirits and helping them find peace. They gathered on stage that evening, the air thick with anticipation and fear. Emma took a deep breath and called out into the darkness. "Annabelle, we're here to help you. We know you're still in pain, and we want to understand. Please, show us what happened." For a moment, there was only silence. Then the temperature dropped, and the stage was bathed in an eerie glow. The ghostly figure of Annabelle appeared, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and rage. "We were betrayed," Annabelle's voice echoed through the theater. "We trusted someone we shouldn't have. Our deaths were not accidents. They were orchestrated." The troupe listened in stunned silence as Annabelle recounted the tragic events. A rival actor, consumed by jealousy and ambition, had sabotaged the performances, leading to the deaths of several troupe members. When the fire broke out, it had been the final act of a desperate attempt to cover up the crimes. Emma felt a deep sorrow for Annabelle and the others. "We're so sorry. We had no idea, but you need to let go of this pain and anger. Holding on to it keeps you trapped here." Annabelle's expression softened, her ghostly form flickering. I don't know how. The pain is all I've known for so long." Rebecca stepped forward, her voice gentle. "We can help you, Annabelle. We can perform the ritual again, but this time with your acceptance. You have to trust us." Annabelle hesitated, then nodded slowly. "All right. I'll trust you." The troupe prepared to perform the ritual once more, this time with a renewed sense of purpose. They gathered in a circle, holding hands as they chanted the ancient words. Emma felt the cold presence lift, replaced by a warmth that spread through the theater. As the final words of the ritual echoed through the space, Annabelle and the other spirits began to fade, their forms dissolving into light. "Thank you," Annabelle whispered, her voice filled with a peace they had never heard before. "We can finally rest." The light grew brighter, filling the theater with a blinding brilliance. When it faded, the spirits were gone, and the oppressive atmosphere had lifted entirely. The theater felt warm and welcoming, free from the shadows of the past. The troupe stood in silence, tears streaming down their faces. They had finally succeeded. The spirits were at peace, and the curse was truly broken. Emma looked around at her friends, their faces filled with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. "We did it," she said softly. "We really did it." Rebecca smiled, wiping away her tears. "Yes, we did. And now, we can move forward and make this theater something truly special." As they left the theater that night, Emma felt a sense of closure and hope. The Meridian Theater had been given a new lease on life, and so had they. The echoes of despair had been silenced, replaced by the promise of a brighter future. With the spirits at peace, the atmosphere in the theater lifted, but the troupe knew they had to perform one final ritual to ensure the curse was broken for good. The discovery of the rival actor's betrayal had revealed the need for a deeper cleansing. The ancient book of rituals mentioned a specific ceremony to purify a cursed place, erasing any lingering traces of malevolent energy. Emma, Rebecca, and Daniel spent hours studying the ritual. It required precise preparation and absolute focus. The troupe needed to be united in their intent, fully committed to cleansing the theater of its dark past. The ritual had to be performed at midnight, when the spiritual energies were at their peak. The troupe gathered in the center of the stage, forming a circle. Candles were placed at the cardinal points, their flames flickering gently in the darkness. A bowl of purified water sat in the center, with sprigs of sage and lavender floating in it. The book of rituals lay open beside the bowl, its pages illuminated by the candlelight. Rebecca began the ceremony by lighting incense, the fragrant smoke curling through the air. She chanted the opening incantation, her voice steady and clear. The rest of the troupe joined hands, their faces solemn with concentration. Emma took a deep breath and began to recite the ancient words, her voice carrying through the silent theater. "Spirits of this place, we call upon you. Hear our plea and know our intent. We seek to cleanse this sacred ground, to free it from the shadows of the past." The air grew cold and the shadows around them seemed to ripple, but Emma continued undeterred. "By the light of these candles, we banish the darkness. By the purity of this water, we wash away the stain of malevolence. By the strength of our unity, we restore this theater to its former glory." The troupe's voices rose in unison, chanting the incantation over and over. The candles flickered more violently, and the air seemed to hum with energy. The bowl of water began to glow, casting an ethereal light across their faces. As the ritual reached its climax, a gust of wind swept through the theater, extinguishing the candles. The room was plunged into darkness, and for a moment, all was silent. Then, a low, rumbling sound filled the air, growing louder and more intense. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the walls seemed to vibrate with the force of the energy being unleashed. Emma held her ground, her voice unwavering. "By our will, we cleanse this place. By our strength, we banish the darkness. Let the light return, and let this theater be free." With a final resounding cry, the energy burst forth, filling the theater with a blinding light. The trembling ceased, and the oppressive weight that had hung over them lifted. The candles reignited on their own, their flames burning steady and bright. The troupe stood in silence, their hands still clasped, their hearts pounding. The theater felt different, lighter, as if a heavy shroud had been lifted. The air was warm and filled with a sense of peace. Rebecca smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "We did it. The curse is broken." The troupe let out a collective sigh of relief, their faces breaking into smiles. They hugged each other, their joy and relief palpable. The theater was finally free, and so were they. In the days that followed, the troupe continued their rehearsals, but now the atmosphere was one of excitement and anticipation. The strange occurrences had ceased, and the theater felt alive with a new energy. The townspeople, drawn by the rumors of the haunted theater, came in droves to see the troupe perform, eager to witness the revival of the Meridian Theater. The night of their first official performance after the ritual, the theater was packed. Emma stood backstage, her heart pounding with nervous excitement. She glanced at her fellow actors, their faces filled with the same mix of nerves and exhilaration. "We've been through so much," Emma said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But we made it. We're stronger because of it. Let's give them a show they'll never forget." The curtain rose, and the troupe stepped onto the stage, their movements confident and assured. As they performed, the audience was captivated, their applause thunderous and heartfelt. The Meridian Theater had been reborn, free from the shadows of its tragic past. After the show, the troupe gathered on stage, basking in the applause and the joy of their triumph. Emma looked out at the audience, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment and peace. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, stronger, and more united than ever. As the audience filed out, Rebecca turned to Emma, a smile playing on her lips. "We did it, Emma. We really did it." Emma nodded, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Yes, we did. And now the Meridian Theater can truly shine." The echoes of despair had been silenced, and the theater was filled with the light of hope and new beginnings. The curse was broken, the spirits at peace, and the troupe ready to embrace their future, knowing they had the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The night of the troupe's first official performance had arrived, and the excitement was palpable. Word had spread through the town about the revival of the Meridian Theater, and the seats were filled with eager patrons. The troupe was ready to showcase their talents and celebrate their hard-won victory over the dark forces that had plagued the theater. Backstage, the air buzzed with nervous energy. Emma adjusted her costume, her heart pounding with anticipation. She glanced at Rebecca, who was giving final instructions to the cast and crew. The memories of the haunting and the ritual still lingered, but they had turned into a source of strength rather than fear. As the lights dimmed and the audience quieted, the curtain rose on the final bow. The first act flowed seamlessly, the troupe's performance infused with a new confidence and passion. The audience was captivated, their applause growing louder with each scene. However, as the second act began, a sense of unease crept over Emma. She felt a familiar chill in the air, and the whisper started again, faint but unmistakable. She forced herself to focus on her lines, determined not to let the lingering spirits disrupt their performance. But as the play reached its climax, the whispers grew louder, and the temperature dropped sharply. The audience shifted in their seats, sensing something amiss. Emma glanced at Rebecca, who looked equally troubled. Suddenly, the lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the stage. The whispers turned into a chorus of desperate voices, echoing through the theater. The audience gasped, some rising from their seats in confusion and fear. Emma stepped forward, her voice strong despite the chaos. "We know you're here," she said, addressing the unseen spirits. "We freed you from your pain. What more do you want from us?" The air grew colder, and a spectral figure appeared at the center of the stage. It was Annabelle, her ghostly form flickering with a mixture of sorrow and anger. "You freed us," she said, her voice a haunting wail. "But the darkness still lingers. The one who betrayed us remains, and he must be brought to justice." Emma's heart raced as she realized the truth. The rival actor who had caused the original troupe's deaths had never faced justice. His spirit still haunted the theater, his malevolent presence the source of the lingering darkness. Rebecca stepped forward, her voice steady. "We will help you find peace, Annabelle. We will confront the one who betrayed you." The audience watched in stunned silence as the spectral drama unfolded before their eyes. The line between the play and reality had blurred, and they were witnessing the final act of a decades-old tragedy. As the troupe continued their performance, the lights dimmed, and a new figure appeared on stage. It was the rival actor, his ghostly form twisted with guilt and rage. "You cannot stop me," he hissed, his voice filled with malice. "I will haunt this theater forever." Emma felt a surge of determination. "No, you won't," she said, stepping toward him. "You will face justice for what you did." The troupe joined hands, their voices rising in unison as they chanted the final incantation from the ritual. The air crackled with energy, and the rival actor's form began to waver. He let out a furious scream as the light enveloped him, dissolving his spirit into nothingness. The temperature returned to normal, and the whispers ceased. The theater was filled with a warm, peaceful light. Annabelle's form shimmered, her expression one of gratitude and relief. "Thank you," she whispered before fading away. The audience erupted into applause, their fear replaced with awe and admiration. They had witnessed something truly extraordinary, a final performance that had brought closure to a decades-old tragedy. As the curtain fell, the troupe gathered on stage, their faces beaming with triumph. Emma felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing they had not only put on a spectacular show, but had also brought peace to the spirits of the past. Rebecca turned to the audience, her voice filled with emotion. "Thank you for joining us tonight. The Meridian Theater has been through much, but it stands strong, thanks to the power of hope, unity, and the love of the arts." The audience rose to their feet, giving the troupe a standing ovation. The theater was filled with the sounds of applause and cheers, a stark contrast to the eerie silence that had once haunted its halls. As the troupe took their final bow, Emma felt a sense of closure and renewal. The Meridian Theater had been reborn, free from the shadows of its tragic past. The spirits were at peace, and the troupe was ready to embrace the future with confidence and hope. In the months that followed, the Meridian Theater thrived. The troupe's performances continued to draw large audiences, and the theater became a beloved cultural landmark in the town. The story of the haunted theater and the brave troupe who had freed it from its curse became a local legend, passed down through generations. Rebecca and Daniel continued to direct and produce new plays, their partnership stronger than ever. Sarah's set designs became increasingly intricate and praised, while Tom's stage management ensured every performance ran smoothly. Mark's comedic talents brought laughter to the audience, and Emma's acting touched their hearts. Despite their busy schedules, the troupe often took moments to reflect on their journey. They remembered the spirits who had once haunted the theater, honoring their memories and the lessons they had learned. The experiences they had shared had forged an unbreakable bond, making them not just a troupe, but a family. The Meridian Theater, once a place of sorrow and despair, had been transformed into a beacon of light and creativity. It stood as a testament to the power of perseverance, unity, and the indomitable spirit of those who loved the arts. And though the theater was now free from its curse, the echoes of its past remained, a silent reminder of the darkness they had overcome and the light they had brought into the shadows. The stage, once a site of tragedy, now shone with the promise of new beginnings and endless possibilities.